Hi, and welcome to InfoSec Pros. I'm Kane, Field CISO at Hyperproof, and I'm joined today at RSA 2025 by Bob Maley, the Chief Security Officer at Black Kite. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Oh, glad to be here. And first thing, enjoy your margarita. That's CloudSec, the booth behind us. They provided those for us.
Thank you, sir. It's always a good way to start off a new episode where I'm not drinking beer. Hint, hint, production crew, and Kane's not drinking beer on the show, right? But Bob, I do appreciate you grabbing the margaritas. That's fantastic. And let's just kind of get stuck right into it around security. So a lot of security leaders are treating vendor and third-party risk management as kind of, or I'd say, kind of one and the same. Based on your experience, what are some of the most significant operational differences between those approaches, and how is that affecting your security strategy?
So it's always interesting looking at the CISO who typically gets kind of the responsibility for the cyber side of it. They don't want it because they have absolutely no control. And that's the challenge is, their own environment, they can see what's going on. They know what's happening inside. But that third party, it's all based on questionnaires. It's based on artifacts. It's kind of based on old information. And although they won't admit it, I think every CISO hates to have it under their responsibility.
I'm fairly certain I could admit that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, not my favorite thing to do. No one's favorite thing to do. Filling out security questionnaires and using those as a proxy statement for trust.
Yeah, it's how do you get things working right in your own house? And now you because third parties are an extension of your house. There's no doubt about it. But what do you have? What's the control? You have a contract, whatever you can get from them in the beginning when you sign up with them. But once you're done there, kind of wild west.
Yeah, and you're raising an interesting point here, Bob, because you're saying like the line between vendor management, which is a classic thing, and third party management, it's getting blurry out there, right? When you're going to talk to your board, let's take it up to the board level. What are the metrics you're using that help differentiate the value of third party risk versus vendor risk management?
So I've kind of simplified that. What's the board interested in? What's important to them? And typically it's the bottom line. And if I go talk to them about high risk, medium risk, low risk, those types of things, they glaze over. Oh, you're the CISO. We're going to trust you. That that what you're doing. But if something bad happens, it's we're coming after you type of thing. But it's understanding what risk the use of third parties, vendors. And you're right that has blurred. Supply chain has blurred. It's essentially any other organization that you use to do something for your company. And that's where the problem is because older programs, older thinking is, well, they're just vendors. We'll go through vendor risk management. But is that enough? And that's the problem. And when you're talking to the board, they want things a little bit simpler. They want to know what's the risk from that ecosystem, not just your vendors, all that third party ecosystem. And if you can talk about that, and you can show how what you're building, what you're doing, how you can reduce that exposure to the bottom line. That's the catch. The bottom line, talking in their language, that's a game changer.
And something that I think a lot of companies are trying to promote at RSA is the use of generative AI or large language models or AI in this space. Are you seeing anything meaningful for effective use of artificial intelligence for third-party risk management?
Okay.
Or should we be skeptical about some of the vendor claims out on the show floor?
So the first thing is you said AI, bingo.
Oh, wait, we have a bingo card now. This show is getting better.
It's hilarious. When they brought out the domain, the top level domain .ai, there's companies here that it's .ai is in their name, but are they using AI? Well, yeah. Interesting. Okay, here's how I figure that out.
Okay.
All right, are they using AI?
Oh, you've got a D20 in your pocket.
D20.
All right. Are they using AI? You got a
15. Oh yeah, this we could if .ai. I'm going to give them a -2 modifier because that's kind of BS. But 15 minus 2, 13. Maybe they are, maybe they are. But yeah, very useful in looking at risk.
We pretty much got a game of Dungeons and Dragons going on at this point, as well as margaritas. So this is going well.
Well, when I came over, I was coming over with our COO, and as we're going down the escalator, I told him, "Now we enter the dungeon," or did maybe I said hell? I'm not quite sure what I said.
The difference between the two is kind of
They're
finite,
very
really.
similar. Yeah.
All right. But some vendors are really positioning generative AI as being revolutionary for third-party risk management. From your perspective and based on your career history, right, is that a real claim or is it just going to be something that the FTC ends up calling AI washing?
So two things. First, go out to my LinkedIn and read the blog I just did about that. It goes into it far further than what we will hear. But first, I do want to say I do believe that AI will change the world around third party risk, just not today. Uh, and that's a challenge. If you're a buyer, if you're going to all these booths and you're looking at this, I saw one booth. The third party risk management program is fixed. It's now all autonomous. You don't have to do anything anymore.
That feels like magic.
Well, is that what we're calling it?
I'm guessing it's got to be indistinguishable from magic if I don't have to do anything.
Well, magic is in Dungeons and Dragons. Here, I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the challenge. There is potential, and I get it. I understand people jumping on board early on because everybody's fascinated with AI. I've been fascinated with it for 2 years, since ChatGPT became a thing, and I do see it, and I see how it is improving just in the last 2 years. The difference in ChatGPT from then to today, phenomenal. Is it going to fix the TPRM program? I don't think so. If it's done correctly, it's going to improve it. It's going to make it better. It's going to make it faster, but it's not going to fix it. I've talked about this. I blogged about this. I believe that best practices in third-party risk management are clearly broken. And how do I know that? Well, we have a trust page. If somebody wants to go out and look at us, well, they can get our SOC 2, they can get our ISO, they can get all those artifacts. They can actually see real time a list of controls that are being tested real time, whether they're passing or not. And they'll do that. And then we'll get a 600 question questionnaire on top of that. And oh, by the way, could you upload the artifacts that we already got?
Wait, are you reading my email?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I didn't told you that I've hacked you a long time ago. But seriously, that's the challenge. Are we going to embrace it? Are we going to do it? Are we going to fix the problem? And the problem is we're stuck in the past. We're stuck over 20 years ago when the questionnaire actually was a valuable tool. And now, no, it's not. The data points underneath it, that's valuable, but that process isn't.
So, are there any areas in third-party risk management where you really see generative AI is making meaningful headway at this point, or is it still best attempt, but works as a demo, but not in prod?
So it is making meaningful progress with analysis of documents. That's one of the things it does really well. Black Kite, we actually started developing our own AI 7 years ago, and that was one of the components of our platform. And wonderful, it was ahead of the game. Did really well. At one point, we trained it because we found out that the NLP stuff is all based on English language. It's not based on cybersecurity geek speak. But we trained it on that, so it got better. But still, AI is going ahead so fast, we couldn't keep up. So we actually we retired that and we moved over to a major companies that will allow because they have the resources. They're keeping up with that. So yes, it's a tremendous time saver, but still, you're in the world. The nuances in third-party risk management, the context that's missing from most of that. It's like, not only is it, well, what's the relationship we have with this vendor? Different business units in your organization might have different relationships, different amounts of data, might not even be data. There's so many things that are into that, yes, it will help you get through and analyze faster. But I still believe that human touch has to be there, has to bring it that context, because sometimes, as much as people think AI is better than humans, the human mind will connect some dots faster and maybe be able to see those nuances that maybe AI will do that in the future, but not yet.
I kind of want to poke at that a little bit there because I think a lot of organizations have struggled in setting up meaningful third-party risk management programs to have adequate number of people associated with it to ask adequate questions in meaningful ways, right? And really what we're trying to do is prevent risks before they materialize. Yes, that's the intent of third-party risk management. Moving aside from the compliance trap where we're checking the box on account of the CLO says we got to check this box, right, to do due diligence, right?
Well, and it's not necessarily a trap. I know what you're saying, but the fact is it's compliance risk. If you fail compliance, there is impact.
There definitely is, but what I want to go to is what are the practices or methodologies that you've seen work consistently across industry contexts for setting up an effective third-party risk management program?
So it's all about the onboarding. It starts back then. And the questions that get asked should be very minimal, but they should be important ones that give you context. Uh, your due diligence questionnaire, your inherent risk questionnaire, and there's so many different terms for it. But I think that's the start. That's information from that point. If you don't have that to begin with, uh, you're struggling. So getting that information up front, then what do you do with that? That's data that you can start using to help streamline, to help automate. And we've seen it that you bring that information in, you use some, I have to mention Black Kite because of the now we built in CRQ factor analysis of information risk. We built in other things like something called the ransomware susceptibility index, but they're factors that can actually do what you said. It's that reduction of risk. So if you have that information up front and you can feed it into those kind of processes, what results is, oh, well, 60% of your vendors you're good with. You can just move them through, speed up the process. Other ones, there's flags, like RSI. When we first brought it out, we started tracking because we have a research team that loves numbers. They like history. They like looking at the efficacy of things like this. And a year ago, what we said was that if your RSI was at a 0.8, that you were 27 times as likely to be a victim of ransomware.
27 times.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure I heard that. That's severe.
Well, no, it's not. The data from last year has changed that. It's 96 times. So if you're over a 0.8 with a ransomware susceptibility index, you're
pretty much getting owned.
Yeah, you are.
Wow.
And it's a process. It's a number that just doesn't flip on and flip off. There's data that goes into it. There's algorithms that you can look back over a time period. And I'm not going to mention the company's names, but we saw that major breaches last year. That over time you saw that RSI going up. You knew when the bad guys were there. You knew when they announced. And it's that type of automation, that type of a data analysis. That's beyond AI. AI still has components, but that's just data analysis. It's looking at historical research. It's understanding how bad actors work, and it's doing exactly what you said, reducing the risk before it happens.
I want to go back to kind of the beginning of where you started in your points, and something I'm surprised you didn't mention. Maybe it's an admission, maybe it's intentional. I think a lot of us get security questionnaires because we have not evaluated the risk that an organization, a third party, poses to our own organization. And I come from the A&D space, and there's a concept of inside the wire and outside the wire. Inside the wire, boy, howdy. I don't care if you're doing the gardening, if you're doing fire suppression systems, or if you've got systems in the data center, you are at a higher risk than somebody who is outside the wire. Are you finding that that's still applicable today, where there's a necessity to evaluate how risky an organization is from a third-party perspective instead of treating everybody as potentially high risk? Or have we reached that level where, in theory, anybody who has access to our systems is potentially a vector for a breach?
Well, they are. They're absolutely. If you look back long enough, Target.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about some HVAC now.
Do you know the name of the company?
I do.
So do I.
Off the top of my head.
Fazio HVAC.
Okay, there you go.
So yes, if they have access to your data, if they have access to your net, all those things should be taken into account. I call it data class or vendor classification. That if they answer those specific things, they present risk. And you should then analyze and understand what that risk is. Uh, they're inside. They're part of your ecosystem. And you could look back. The numbers again last year. We just have a data breach report that shows the numbers of breaches that have cascaded out from third parties is increasing. Everything about this is increasing. It's why I say we're losing the war. That current best practices are failing. And I love it. Oh well, you're gonna give me data of what a company looks like from outside. Well, that's not as important as what's inside. Well, not true. They're both important, but one of them is almost impossible to get. How do you really get real telemetry from inside your vendors? Is it technically possible? Absolutely, it's been technically possible for a long time. Is it legally possible? No. You're because there's liability, we're going to let you inside our wire, all those things. So, yes, it has value. And that's kind of where the compliance, I love looking at their, not just getting their information security policies, but I like looking at their program around, are they updating it annually? I remember when I was at PayPal, I did an assessment. They sent me the security policy, and at the top it said information security policy for insert your company name here. So I did not need AI to know there was a problem, but it was real. But you address it, and it's digging a little deeper. If it's a high risk vendor, if you see that vendor could potentially impact your organization, if something bad happens, you've got to do the research. You got to ask the right questions and understanding that. And the other one, it's like, oh, okay, well, you have that and you update it every year. How many exceptions to that policy do you have a year? What do you do about those? So it's knowing that it's not direct telemetry of inside their network, but it tells me how they're handling. And the hygiene of their external, that can be reflective of inside as well. And it's funny. It's like, oh, just because they have bad hygiene outside doesn't mean they have bad hygiene inside. Really? Then it's a pretty young, immature CISO that looks at it that way. Because we all know that yes, there are problems inside, and yes, if they get inside, we have to have protection. What happened to Target? They got inside on the HVAC network, and they pivoted a couple ways across until they got a place where they could inject malware in credit card devices. So yes, both are important. Well, I don't think one outweighs the other. But you can't just say, yeah, I can't get it. There are ways to figure out how to do that.
All right, and I want to poke at one other thing there because you brought up contracts, you brought up some regulations. I know that in the European
Oh, I
Union.
forgot to tell you, contract.
Oh boy, wow, you got a hidden bingo card there. This is so much better than beer. We've got regulations like the EU's DORA or NIS2. We've got contractual regulations or contractual requirements that we enforce on other customers in our supply chain. All of those are things we're trying to get people to do, right? We're trying to get a better behavior out of our supply chain. What are some other key attributes you see as a successful marker in third-party risk management outside of that requested behavior change?
All right. 19. I guess I have
19,
to answer
wow.
this one. If it was this one, no, wasn't going to answer that. But so regulations, are they important? Yes. Do we interpret them and enforce them properly? I would say no, because if you're subject to DORA, now you have another set of questions. You look at, an AI. There are, that I know of, 16 frameworks around the world. MIT did a study, and they expanded the term frameworks to research papers to, I think it was 54.
Oh
And
my goodness.
out of those, they came up with over 1,000 AI risks. So, yeah, let's get a bottle of margarita. Let's get a picture before we go further with this. But what do you do about that? You're a large company, and well, DORA, because they want, it doesn't matter that you're in the U.S. If your customers over there, you're subject to it. All the other, Singapore, Australia. Now Australia is a very technical one, but if you look at all those frameworks and you do some analysis, they ask the same questions in a little bit different way that you could probably maybe 25 or 30 different control vectors that would cover all of them. Simplification. That's how that process should work. I don't see it yet. Right now it's the big thing is, oh, you're using AI, you have to get ISO certified. And okay, how do you do that? Oh, yeah, it's all those questions again. It's a process, and yeah, it's crazy. It's a challenge.
All right. Well, I want to kind of end on a positive note, I hope, because we ultimately we have margaritas. It's gonna be positive. It's gonna be a positive show either way. My goodness me. But I do want to end on a positive note. So, what are some of the actionable things that CISOs listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube could do in order to better communicate the value of a TPRM program? Because I think you and I have both seen organizations where they've failed to value that, or they've failed to express the value of that, and like Target, they've had some negative effects. What are some of the metrics that you use that you think that our viewers could use to say, hey, this is worth it, it's valuable, we're producing a good outcome here?
So right out of the gate, you have to look at how you classify your vendors. Right now, everybody does it by tiering. And, in reality, if you tier vendors, you'll get vendors in tier 1 that don't really need an assessment because you haven't taken into account all the controls that you have standing that are in place. So you have to look at it differently. You have to start out with what I call classification. Do they have access to your data? Do they have access to your network? Are they critical to your operation? If you're in a finance, are they material? Those same types of things. And you start out with that group, and then you do and use technology to look at those with those initial inherent risk questionnaire, whatever you call it, tie it into that to understand which of these vendors really could cause problems. And that's where you put your limited stack. That's where you spend your time doing the deeper dive in there. The rest of them, low RSI, low financial impact, low risk. Boom. We've solved our business problem. We've improved our approval metric because everybody that wants to use a vendor, they don't care. They want their vendor approved today. Now, you and I both know you can't do it today, but if you can reduce that time for a large segment of vendors, it improves the overall metrics in your program. And then you're left with focusing on the ones that could really cause problem to you. And that's how you can sleep at night.
I love that. And I think that's really great advice for folks who are wondering, how do I effectively communicate business value? And Bob, I really want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for bringing margaritas on the show with you at RSA 2025. And if you're watching this and you like margaritas, or alternatively, if you're, a person who's a cybersecurity expert or who'd like to be on the show or know someone who is, drop me a DM, reach out to me on LinkedIn. With that, Bob, again, I really want to thank you. I want to thank our audience for spending some time with us today. Great seeing you again.
Thanks for having me.